Welcome to one more of our Conversations with the Dead. These conversations are made possible because of the help and assistance of many people. I need to mention in particular Professor Ramez Malouf, who has been working on this project now for a long time. Without his efforts, we could not have done this. My name is Frederick Truth. I am absolutely delighted to be meeting with the 16th President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln, a man to whom this country owes a lot. Thank you, President Lincoln, for agreeing to join us. I want to start by telling you that I am a descendant of the abolitionist Sojourner Truth, and therefore this is a particularly significant moment for me. Can we begin our conversation with your memories of the night of your assassination? The Civil War had finally ended, the Union had been preserved, and the slaves in the Confederacy made free, at least officially. Did you feel the weight of history pressing in?
I did. Not in the sense of dread, but in the quiet awareness that something was closing. As you point out, the war had ended, the Union preserved, and the great stain of slavery had begun to lift. Yet peace is not a balm. It is a mirror. It shows us what we've become. I had received threats before, countless, but that night at Ford's Theater, I felt a strange calm. I had spoken with my cabinet about the future, about reconciliation. I had held Mary's hand. I had laughed. And then, in a moment, the curtain fell, not just on the play, but on my part in the great American drama. I do not mourn my death. I mourn that I could not see the healing through.
Your wife was right there next to you, yes, holding your hand at that moment. What a tragic moment, Mr. President. Still, your marriage to Mary Todd Lincoln has been described by historians as volatile. What was it really like?
Mary was fire and intellect. She was born into privilege, but she chose me, a man of humble beginnings, awkward in company, and often lost in thought. She saw something in me before the country did. Our love was not gentle, but it was fierce. We argued, yes. She suffered greatly, especially after my son Willie's death. Her grief was bottomless, and I could not always reach her. But she was my confidant, my critic, my companion. She understood politics better than most men in Washington. History has been cruel to her, but I remember her as the woman who stood beside me when the world trembled. She stood by me even though her own family, father and brothers, were slave owners and died fighting for the Confederacy.
That must have been very hard for her, but she stood by you, a woman of character. You left the world of the living too early, but what moments in your life do you carry with you most vividly?
Right now, I would say that 3 moments rise above the rest. First, my time as a circuit lawyer in Illinois. Riding from town to town, sleeping in taverns, arguing cases before juries of farmers. That taught me the rhythm of the common man's mind. Second, the Emancipation Proclamation. I signed it not as a politician, but as a man who had wrestled with God. It was imperfect, limited in scope, but it was a beginning. Third, Gettysburg. I spoke for 2 minutes. Others spoke for hours. But in those few words, I tried to distill the essence of our struggle. That democracy is not a luxury, but a covenant.
Did you ever feel conflicted about the Confederacy? Horace Greeley of the New York Tribune criticized you for not being firm about abolition. By 1862, when he wrote that editorial, most American countries, except for Brazil, I believe, had freed their slaves, some as early as the first decade of the century. Was he right in accusing you of indecisiveness?
In retrospect, I believe he was right. For the Union could not have lasted if the slaves were not freed. I believe both sides realized that, and there was no reason to sign the Emancipation Declaration, and I did that shortly after. The Confederacy was born of fear. Fear that equality would upend a way of life built on bondage. I understood their pride, their attachment to land and tradition, but I could not abide the idea that one man might own another. I did not seek to humiliate the South. I sought to redeem it. I offered amnesty, reconstruction, a path back, but I would not compromise on the Union. Secession was not a right. It was a rupture. And slavery was not a Southern problem. It was America's original sin. America was, and I believe continues to be, slow in recognizing injustices it commits. Ironic, as we are a nation allegedly built on a higher ground.
The main reason you entered the war, however, was to save the Union. What did the Union mean to you?
It meant continuity. It meant that the sacrifices of the Revolution were not in vain. The Union was not merely a collection of states. It was a promise that liberty could be shared, not hoarded, that laws could be made by the people, not imposed by kings. I feared that if the Union fell, democracy itself would be discredited. The world was watching. Monarchs scoffed at our experiment. I wanted to prove them wrong, not with rhetoric, but with resilience. To save the Union, yes, but more deeply, to save the soul of the nation. I did not seek war. I pleaded with the South to return. I offered compromise, delay, dialogue. But they fired on Fort Sumter. They chose disunion. I could not let the idea of America perish. The war was brutal. Brother against brother, fields soaked in blood. But it was necessary. We had to confront the lie that freedom could coexist with slavery. We had to prove that democracy could endure even its darkest hour.
Today, after more than 150 years since your death and the end of the Civil War, what do you believe is most essential about America?
Its restlessness. America is never satisfied. It is always reaching, questioning, reforming. That is its genius and its torment. We are a nation of contradictions, liberty and slavery, unity and division, idealism and violence, humanity and cruelty. But we are also a nation of renewal. We write new chapters. We expand the circle of belonging. I believed then, and I believe now, that America's greatness lies not in its power, but in its capacity to change. However, I fear that most Americans today have not understood that your world is no longer what it was in the 19th or 20th centuries, and that America has to change, and to do so considerably.
In what way do you feel the world has changed, and how should America change to accommodate itself with that change?
Values formerly associated with America have, unfortunately, lost their inspirational power. This is a great loss. No longer a city on the hill. Freedom of speech, human rights, are no longer values that the world associates with the United States. Maybe just the opposite. I believe the majority of the people in the United States claim to adopt ideals that are not truly ingrained in the population. They espouse them only as long as they serve them. But when they are really put to the test, the problem is revealed. The world is no longer waiting. It is moving on. I am writing a short article on how I see this development, and I will send you a copy once it is done.
Thank you, but I am not sure you can actually send anything to the living. My understanding is that you can receive messages and emails, but cannot send them out to the living. And I forgot to ask you, Do you know where you are? Heaven? Hell? Where is this?
Yes, you're right. I keep forgetting. I will try to find a way. Maybe when you or one of your colleagues visit again. Where am I? I must admit I have no idea. I meet with good and bad people, some very interesting. I bumped into Isaac Newton last week. I recognized him, but he had no idea who I was. Lots of interesting people. One of the perks of being dead.
Well, something to look forward to, I guess. Thank you, President Lincoln. That was quite an honor. If you see Sojourner, please say hello. And all of you, thank you for watching, and join us soon for another conversation with the dead.